Hello everybody, this is Jesse here coming at you with another video. This is a little bit newsworthy and I think it's pretty interesting, and I figured I'd come at you with this video. Plus there's going to be a little bit of research and stuff like that I'm going to share with you. This came out May 9th, 2016, and as the headline states, President Obama signs bill declaring the bison the national mammal, alongside with the bald eagle as the national bird or whatever. Now, certain groups of Christianity have threw pictures up there of, the bison being, as like the beast out of the earth in Revelation 13, and representing America, and there's some quarrels and differences of how this happened. Most of them that believe this believe that America started out great, started out as a Protestant nation, but then grew into what it is today, which speaks like a dragon. Me, I have a different viewpoint in that, and that even though, as Revelation 13 talks about that he had two horns like a lamb and he spake as a dragon, you have to look at that very carefully. It states he had two horns like a lamb. Doesn't necessarily mean it was a lamb. Okay? Now, if it stated this beast had two horns as a lamb, then we could kind of see something as something starting out good turning into something bad. But just the aspect of it having two horns like a lamb tells me something different. Is that this beast came up with philosophies and rose up and put on a front, a cloak, if you will, that represented so-called lamb-like Protestant principles, but in reality it was a cover-up. That's why it says two horns like a lamb, not two horns as a lamb. Again, like and as is a total different animal. And so when you look at the bison, you see two horns. It's obviously not a lamb, it's a bison. So you have two horns like a lamb. And it speaks like a dragon. Now, I confess to everybody here that's going to listen to this, as I submit that, yes, I do think this represents America in the sense that it has always had two horns like a lamb, and it has always, from the very beginning, spoke like a dragon. And what is the dragon? What did the dragon do? It gave the first beast its power, seat, and great authority. Okay? So in that sense, what was the beast that came up out of the earth is in a sense the same thing, although risen up in a different location, is the same thing as the first beast out of the sea. There is no difference. So you can kind of basically state that really the beast out of the sea, which was the papacy or Rome, and you see America as basically Rome revived in a sense. So that's basically where I come from on that standpoint. So I thought this was very interesting that this came out. And, so I'm not even going to read the article because there's nothing really interesting within the article, but I just wanted to share that headline. Now, when we go and look at the reign of the first beast, which was 1,260 prophetic days or 1,260 literal years, I'm going to read you a quote from, now this isn't no biased source, this actually comes from T.W. Allies, from his book, The Holy See and the Wanderings of the Nations. Now, this is coming from a Catholic point of view, okay? So, this is a Catholic source. This is what, they're saying. And it states, quote, "The Emperor Justinian addressed to Pope John II in the year 533 a letter from which I quote as follows. I preface that this letter was carried to the Pope by two imperial legates, the bishops Hypatius and Demetrius. It begins, quote, rendering honor to the Apostolic See and to your Holiness, whom we ever have revered, and do revere, as is befitting a father, we hasten to bring to the knowledge of your Holiness everything which concerns the state of the churches. For the existing unity of your Apostolic See and the present undisturbed state of God's holy churches has always been a thing which we have earnestly sought to maintain, and so we lost no time in subjecting and uniting all bishops of the whole eastern region to the see of your Holiness. We have now, therefore, held it necessary that the points mooted, though they are clear and beyond doubt, and have been ever firmly maintained and proclaimed by all bishops according to the teaching of your Apostolic See, should be brought to the knowledge of your Holiness, for we do not allow that anything concerning the state of the churches, clear and undoubted though it be, when once mooted, should not be made known to your Holiness, who is the head of all the holy churches. For as we for as we said, in all things we hasten to increase the honor and authority of your see. The end of all was that after a siege of a year and 9 days, in which the Goths had fought 69 battles, Vitiges in March 538 drew off his diminished troops. And there were some stragglers along the way that still kind of caused a headache for, the little horn and its rise. But basically, 533, the decree was issued, and in 538, the decree was enacted. You add 1,260 years to that, you come up with 1798. And for those that know about the French Revolution, it was General Berthier that basically took the Pope captive in these types of things, hence, creating this deadly wound, so it seemed. Okay? Because that's what, as it were, wounded to death. So it seemed wounded to death. And we come, obviously, to that point. In Revelation 13:3, it states, "And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wandered after the beast." Okay? And obviously, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. We all know that this power did this throughout the Dark Ages. That's why it's called the Dark Ages, because what is the Word of God? The Word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. A light unto my path and a lamp unto my feet. So basically, the church suppressed that light, and therefore that was the captivity that ensued for 1,260 years. So he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword. I don't have to really go too much into detail about the atrocities and the tortures and the murders of roughly over 50. I've even heard accounts of over 100 million people that died during this time frame, that were martyred for their faith, and these types of things. So he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Pope Pius VI, he was taken captive, and he died in captivity in 1799. So here's the patience and the faith of the saints. Okay, so obviously, that's basically the crux of the matter, a very short form of this history of Papal Rome, or the Roman Catholic Church, if you will. So, and then around this time frame, around the French Revolution, you had something else that was happening. So while this play of making it seem like there is wound happening, as it were, so it seemed, there were powers in play that went underground and yet were caused another kingdom to arise. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. And folks, there's when you look at a beast, there's no difference of what a beast is in prophecy. You can read about it in Daniel 7. It is a kingdom, and that's it. There is only one other kingdom that arose around this time frame of that deadly wound. Okay, there's only one. That's it. And that is the New World. That is America. Okay. Now, again, I submit to you that, the founding of this nation was not grounded on Protestant principles. Because, yes, it had two horns like a lamb. A lamb is a representation of Christ. Okay? Well, what did Paul say? He talked about, those that preach another Jesus and these types of things. So, even though it says it had two horns like a lamb, this kingdom was never a lamb to begin with. It had two horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. So from the very beginning, it was a fraud. It was a lie. It was a cover. Okay? Yes, there were Puritans that were fleeing persecution from the old world coming to the new world, and I understand that. But at the same time, you got to remember, and there's some quotes I'm going to go over here that will basically prove that even though they were fleeing religious persecution, they were taking some of the dogmas from Rome, just like those of the Reformation. They came out of the church. They brought some of that baggage with them. So it is the same here with these Puritans. They came over and established the colonies, but at the same time, there was some faulty things with them. And some of these quotes that I'm going to share with you proves that. Okay? So let's go ahead and go over that real quick. And then we will close. This is from the works of Thomas Goodwin from 1600. He was born in 1600 and died in 1680. Published in 1861. This is volume 3, pages 70 and 71. Let's take a look at this. For though they, with an impudent forehead, renounce the Pope's character and the name of Papists, and will by no means be called priests of Baal, though priests they affect to be called, but boast themselves to be of the Reformation, and opposites to the papal faction. Yet with as much impudence do they bring in an image of popish worship and ceremonies, adding to some old limbs, never cast out, other substantial parts of altars, crucifixes, second service, and the like, so to make up a full likeness in the public service to that of the popish church. They bring in the carcass first, which may afterwards be inspired with the same opinions, and all this, not as popery, or with the annexion of popish idolatrous opinions, but upon such grounds only as upon which Protestants themselves had continued some other ceremonies. And, as in worship, so in doctrine, they seek to bring in a presence in the sacrament of the Lord's Supper, beyond that which is spiritual to faith, which yet is not popish transubstantiation, a power in priests to forgive sins, beyond that which is declarative, yet not that which mass priests arrogate, justification by works, yet not so grossly as in the way of popish merit, but as a condition of the gospel as well as faith, and many the like to these, this truly setting up an image of old popery in a Protestant reformed way, even as popery is an image of heathenish worship in a Christian way. Okay? So, again, let me repeat that. Justification by works, yet not so grossly as in the way of popish merit, but they still kind of had that inkling with them. But as a condition of the gospel, as well as faith and many the like to these, thus truly setting up an image of old popery in a Protestant reformed way, even as popery is an image of heathenish worship in a Christian way. So Thomas Goodwin recognized something here, even among the Puritan faith, even among the colonial period, that something was going on. Even in the midst of these Puritans fleeing and coming to this new world, they were bringing with them this theology that had little droplets of popery within it, both political and spiritual. So the seeds were already being planted. Okay? So obviously Thomas Goodwin actually had an idea of what this Protestant beast may be. We go further, and this is out of Prophetic Faith of Our Fathers, Volume 3, page 212, 213, and 214. And it states, Isaac Bacchus, from 1724 to 1806, distinguished Baptist historian and champion of religious liberty, was born in Norwich, Connecticut. Without formal college graduation, he received an honorary M.A. from Rhode Island College Brown University in 1797. In 1741, under the Great Awakening, he was soundly converted. He heard Whitefield preach in 1745, and in 1746, feeling called to preach, he started out on a preaching tour. In 1748, he was ordained pastor of the Congregational Church of Middlesbrough, Massachusetts. Excuse me. In 1749, a number of his members accepted the doctrine of immersion. He at length joined in their beliefs, and in 1751 was immersed with them. In 1756, they organized a Baptist church and installed him as their pastor, which position he held for 50 years. To his efforts, the Baptists of America owe much of their success. He was a strong protagonist of religious liberty. Even that right there raises a question mark, though. Protesting against civil control of religion. He was a member of the Continental Congress in 1774 and of the Massachusetts Convention for the ratification of the federal Constitution at Boston in 1778. Oppression by second Protestant beast of exceptional interest is the new application by Bacchus of the second beast of Revelation 13:11 through 18. So here, again, this American Baptist preacher is seeing something here with this beast. Okay? And I quote you the following. This is what he stated. For the Protestant beast hath carried blood and slavery around the world, in galleys and gallant ships, as far as the first beast ever did. Then he adds that spiritual tyranny had penetrated into several of the United States of America, as illustrated by forceful public support of public Protestant teachers of piety, religion, and morality in Massachusetts. So again, here is some recognition of this kingdom, but at the very beginning of this kingdom, yeah, okay, it may have appeared to be just like Roman Catholicism has cloaked themselves in a garb of Christianity, considering themselves, or what really is, baptized paganism. And likewise, Protestants who came over here and started becoming part and partial in politics and all the political parts and patriotic movements during the American fight for independence, or and these types of things, they in part basically was baptized popery. Okay? So that's basically what this two horns like a lamb is. at the same time speaks like a dragon. I listened to a broadcast that basically stated that you know they no longer believe that America is the beast out of the earth, and in a sense you have to ask yourself, yeah, for the most part that is Adventism, but Adventism has got it a little bit twisted because they submit to themselves that the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution was a Protestant principle document based on Christian principles. When I look at this view, I don't see that. When you look at this, and I'm going to quote a little bit out of Rulers of Evil, let's kind of get some groundwork of where this Hegelian principle comes from. Let's see if I can move my move this over a little bit so you can read this along with me. And I'm going to read you a portion out of chapter 14, which is called The Dogma of Independence. Now, here is this Cardinal Bellarmine, which basically set the notion of this Hegelian dialectic, or any aspect of cloaking themselves in democracy, which would basically in turn give all the power to the people, which in turn seems Protestant in principle, but there is a more sinister plot at play. Okay? And so we're going to start. Let me see. I'll start in this paragraph here. I mean, this whole chapter is really good, but let's just go ahead and start with this paragraph here. It states, quote, John Locke held such influence over revolutionary intellectuals that historians have labeled him America's philosopher. He too endorsed Bellarmine by attacking Filmer on the title page of the two treaties on government, 1690. Locke advertises that he will refute Patriota, that, basically where we get patriotism, with reasoning wherein the false principles and foundation of Sir Robert Filmer and his followers are detected and overthrown. He then expounds Cardinal Bellarmine in his own words that will become the rationale of the American Revolution. Men being by nature all free, equal, and independent, no one can be put out of this estate and subject to the political power of another without his consent. The personal liberty of the main author of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson, contained a copy of Patriota and also a handsome folio of 497 pages of the discourse of Algernon Sidney. Quote, if Jefferson read but the opening pages of Sidney's and Filmer's books, Bellarminian scholar John Clement Rayer wrote in 1926, quote, he had the principles of democracy as propounded by Bellarmine in a nutshell. It is more than likely, however, that the curiosity of Jefferson prompted him to look more deeply into the original writings of this Catholic schoolman. He had not far to go. In the library of Princeton University there was a copy of Cardinal Bellarmine's work. James Madison, a member of the committee which framed the Virginia Declaration of Rights, was a graduate of Princeton. Probably he read Bellarmine, for at this period of his life he read everything he could lay his hands on and was deeply versed in religious controversy. It might be remarked that several members of the committee which drew up the Virginia Declaration of Rights had been educated in England, where the writings of Bellarmine were not unpopular even among those who were most inimical to his faith. The operative philosophy of the Declaration of Independence is easily traceable to Bellarminian liberation theology. So basically, it is a Jesuitical influence. You gotta remember something here, okay? These are very, very intelligent individuals. They know how to play the mind. Okay, so even though something seems good and right, does not necessarily mean it is. It may seem good and right in the open eye, but behind the scenes, it is a mere play to adapt a system that will last as long as it has to in order for the pendulum to start swinging the other way. Because people will ask for it. Because they will realize that this system is no longer working and we need another system in place. And this is why the Declaration of Independence and Cardinal Bellarmine's liberation theology are one and the same. So here we're going to look at the very, very awesome similarities between Cardinal Bellarmine, liberation theology, and Declaration of Independence. So here's Cardinal Bellarmine. Quote, political power emanates from God. Government was introduced by divine law, but the divine law has given this power to no particular man. Declaration of Independence. Quote, the people are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. See the similarities? By the way, Cardinal Bellarmine's liberation theology and the Declaration of Independence theology, you're not going to see no mention of Jesus Christ at all in it. This is all basically based on self-reliance, self-independence, self. Okay? Here's number 2. Society must have power to protect and preserve itself. Declaration of Independence. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. But Jesus stated, my kingdom is not of this world. Okay? Cardinal Bellarmine. The people themselves immediately and directly hold the political power. Declaration of Independence. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Bellarmine. All men are born naturally free and equal. Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal. Bellarmine. For legitimate reasons, the people can change the government to an aristocracy, sorry, I butchered that, or a democracy, or vice versa. Declaration of Independence. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute a new government. That's a biggie. Okay? You look at all of these points, and all of these points sound good. But what happens if certain things start to happen and no longer the people want that old form of government, and so therefore they want to revert to something new? Okay? That's Cardinal Bellarmine's theology. That's the Declaration of Independence's theology. So you have to ask yourself, is the Declaration of Independence a lamb-like principle, or is it a principle that is like a lamb cloaking itself and speaking as a dragon? And then we're gonna finish off the rest of this chapter here. So interestingly, Patriota out of 1680 was not published until 28 years later, after its author Sir Robert Filmer's death. It arrived in the era of dwindling hopes for divine right, the concept having been thoroughly discredited when King Charles I was beheaded in 1625. Could it be that Patriota was edited or ghost-written by Jesuits at the command of Superior General John Paul Oliva from 1661 to 1681? The purpose would have been to induce the enemies of Roman Catholicism to follow Bellarmine by having Bellarminian liberation attacked by a loser, Fillmore, the disgraced champion of a lost Protestant cause. The idea is not far-fetched when one considers actual outcome, for Patriarcha did in fact produce a theory of revolution that impelled the colonists to create a nation subservient to the Black Papacy. But for liberation theology to translate into the violence necessary to divide the English-speaking world, England had to commit acts of tyranny. How this was accomplished, despite a dazed and confused and rather innocuous young king, is the subject of our next chapter. So, there you have it. It's a very touchy subject, and actually, when I'm going through this book, Grand Design Exposed, and again, there's some theology that John Daniel teaches that I personally respectfully disagree with but his view on history is very profound and is very accurate. And again, this doesn't just start with Adventism. There were Christians back then, Bible-believing Christians, that were seeing these things. Okay? And again, when you look at Revelation chapter 13, if I could scroll back up here. Oh, I must not have it. When you look at Revelation chapter 13, it states, "And I beheld another beast, another kingdom." Okay, this is another kingdom coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. The supposed deadly wound was healed, because the Bible states, "as it were," which actually means "so it seemed." So, as it seemed that this deadly wound was inflicted, and the Pope was taken into captivity, and died in captivity, at the very same time, a couple years prior, there's already workings of a new kingdom arising. And those behind the scenes, Jesuitical individuals and papists behind the scenes are already working hand in hand to bring about another kingdom that would be an exact image of the first beast. So can you essentially say that America or Rome-America is basically the papacy restored? In a sense, yes. Military arm. It's the military arm of the first beast. All the symbolisms and these types of things are exact replicas or images of the first beast, and these types of things. But folks, let me make this clear again. This kingdom, even though it appeared to have two horns like a lamb, representing religious and civil freedom, those two horns were penned by a liberation theology that was penned by Cardinal Bellarmine, and that was enacted within the Declaration of Independence. So from the very beginning, It had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke like a dragon. So with that, I'm going to close this video. And until next time, truth be told, truth be known, stay safe. God bless. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.